There are two skills that are evident when you're playing the Pokemon TCG: piloting a deck and building your deck. If you're really good at piloting a deck, that skill does diddly squat if the deck is poorly designed. However, a strongly built deck can carry even the newest players to victory. In today's video, I'm going to cover some tips and tricks to make you a better deck builder. A word of caution before we start. A deck that will win is a deck you're familiar with. Too many players try to modify their decks the day of a tournament. Trying out new cards is for testing, and a high stakes tournament is not the right testing ground. So use this guide with plenty of time before your next tournament. How do you go about modifying a deck? Well, first you need a deck list. Doesn't do you no good if you don't have one, so come up with your own or borrow one from online as a basis. Some excellent resources include gymleaderchallenge.com, Cardboard Warriors, and Limitless TCG, which you can all find in the description down below. Before playing games, deconstruct your deck and lay it out so you can easily see the parts of your deck. Keep track of these important numbers: basic energy count, supporter count, tool count, and Pokemon count. A typical deck will have around 12 to 16 Pokemon, 8 to 11 energies, 13-ish supporters, and the remaining cards a mix of trainer, tools, and stadiums. When laying out your deck, you may already start to notice some issues with your deck list. Note them down before playtesting, and when you're testing, see if you thought was an issue or not. Now, play some dummy hands several times to see if the majority of your hand is workable. If about 8 out of 10 hands are playable, then you have a pretty consistent deck for the early game. If you don't, go ahead and switch out some cards before you start playtesting an actual match. When playtesting to improve your deck, always playtest to discover the tempo of the game, which means you don't have to finish each match. Sometimes playing 3 to 5 turns is all you need. That means you're just playing long enough to figure out if you're going to win or lose and which cards are dead. This will save you time and energy and will accelerate the improvement of your deck. You'll be able to discover what cards you just never play or always clog up your hands. Keep track of these cards while you play or swap them out immediately for other cards you want to test. But how do you decide what cards you want to test? While testing your deck, you may see some recurring patterns in your game, such as consistently missing energy attachments, not having enough Pokemon early game or late game, not having enough resources to keep putting on pressure, etc., etc. Here are some common issues and ways to fix them. Not running enough energy or running too much energy. For a while there, many decks got greedy and ran 6 or so basic energy. No deck should run such a low energy count, except Night March, Vespiquen, and Gyarados. You get the point. There will always be an exception to these rules. But decks in general should run at least 7 energy to remain functional, with a typical deck running between 8 and 10 energies. Energy-hungry decks may run as much as 12, but if you find wanting more energy than that, it's time to look at your trainer lineup. Sometimes you just need to add energy surge and recover items in order to solve your current issue. But if you add in those cards and are still lacking energy at crucial times, then you consider adding at least 1 more energy. Too many Pokemon. Sometimes you need to take a step back and ask yourself, what is the goal of my deck? Who is the main attacker? How does this main attacker get powered up? Which Pokemon do I never bench unless I'm desperate? AKA, which Pokemon am I benching when the game has already been lost? After deconstructing your deck, if your Pokemon count is very high, like 15 or 18 Pokemon, you need to ask yourself if you need all of those guys, or if some of them are just nice ideas that never get played. Perhaps drop some Pokemon or thin down your lines to see what you can get away with while still pulling ahead. That is the beauty of deck testing. What you pull out for 1 or 2 games could easily go back in the next. Not enough consistency, too many tech cards. A good deck is one where you never have to worry about getting what you need at the right time. Of course, a Pokemon deck will never be 100% consistent. High is probably around 95, and those deck lists are absolutely cracked. Consistency in deck building is about stacking the odds of your deck to give you outs to what you need when you need it. For example, access to Pokemon early game and energy attachments, or access to crucial trainers mid to late game. New players typically struggle with consistency because they lack the trainers to build their decks and instead fill their decks with Pokemon and energy. Keep in mind that item cards are the most aggressive consistency and should be relied upon as much as you possibly can. Tech cards are cards that do other things than helping get your guys out and powered up. For example, Gust, one of the most powerful effects in all of Pokemon, is a tech option and should only take up a couple of slots in your deck at most. Supporter Recovery falls in a similar vein. The new technical machines are also tech tools, and so are popular stadiums such as Lost City or Pokestop. If you have too many tech cards, you'll notice that instead of forwarding your own game plan, you're instead banking on mainly disrupting your opponent and hoping that their bad luck will cause you a victory. Occasionally such decks exist and is the main goal of the control archetype, but for the majority of typical decks, having too much tech will cause you to brick and lose momentum. But what if you have none of the cards you want to test for? Make a proxy. Proxies are as in-depth or simple as you need them to be. It's an easy way to test if you want to play a certain card or not, so definitely use proxies as much as possible in order to save precious time and money. And a final word of caution. You can overwork your decks. Sometimes you just need to let your deck sit while you wait for the right card to be printed for it, and that's okay. Realistically, deck testing should only take a couple of hours to make a good chunk of improvement. Researching and coming back with fresh eyes can help improve your deck further, but you also need to recognize when you're just messing with your deck for no reason. Not every deck will be an A or S tier deck, because not every archetype has access to the same level of power. That's just something you need to accept when playing the Pokemon TCG. Anyways, that will do it for today's video, and I'll see you guys all in the next one. Be sure to let me know down below what other tips you would like me to share with you, and I'll see you guys all in the next video. Bye!